did not think I would get emotional about that. What a 5-ton bull elephant told me about behaviour change. There's a smell that stays with you. Hay, damp earth, and something underneath it all. Ancient, animal, hard to describe unless you've been in it. That's what an elephant yard smells like in the morning, before the zoo opens, before the noise of the day arrives. I'd put my waterproof suit on in half light and Bong Su would already be watching. 5 tons of Asian bull elephant. Still, eyes wide, waiting. He knew what was coming, and after months of patient, careful work, he was okay with it. I want to tell you that story, because it's not really a story about an elephant. It's a story about what happens when you stop forcing change and start building trust instead. And it's the foundation of everything I do as a health coach today. So who was Bong Su? Bong Su was the resident bull elephant at Melbourne Zoo. Malaysian by origin, he'd lived in captivity for the entirety of his adult life. A long, complex history that stretched back decades before I arrived as a keeper. And here's something I love about this story. I had actually visited Melbourne Zoo as a 12-year-old kid, completely unaware that somewhere on those grounds this animal was already living his quiet, contained life. Years later I'd be standing in his yard before sunrise and the universe would make a certain kind of sense. Bull elephants in the wild are shaped by pressure and competition, the biological surge of must, a hormonal state that turns mature bulls into dominant, sometimes dangerous creatures. They push and they prove and they establish themselves through strength and persistence. Bong Su was none of that. His formative years had been spent largely in the company of Mekapa, the sole female elephant at Melbourne Zoo. Without other bulls to compete against, without the social architecture of a wild herd, without the crucible that forges a dominant bull, Bong Su had become something genuinely unusual. Calm, placid, almost gentle. He wasn't broken, he wasn't less. He was shaped differently by his environment than his biology alone would have predicted, which, if you sit with that for a moment, is true of almost every person that walks through my door. Now, the reason Bong Su's temperament mattered, beyond the daily relief of working safely with a 5-ton animal, was that Bong Su was genetically significant. His Malaysian lineage made him one of the most important bulls in the entire Australasian zoo network. His genes needed to be shared with the females at Melbourne Zoo and across the region. But there was a problem. Bong Su had no interest in behaving like a breeding bull. The drive simply wasn't there. And so the decision was made to pursue artificial insemination, which meant regular semen collection, not once, but consistently over time. So what happens when the wrong method meets the wrong animal? Enter a team of German reproductive biologists, world class, genuinely the best in the business, travelling from zoo to zoo across the globe doing exactly this kind of work. They arrived with their equipment, their methodology, and a methodology that in clinical terms involved prostate massage. We're talking about bull elephant anatomy here. The scale of everything involved is not small. And the technique these specialists used, effective as it undoubtedly was, with other animals in other settings, was assertive, clinical, built for efficiency, designed to produce a result, full stop. Bong Su hated every second of it. And here's where I learned something I have never forgotten. Something that sits at the absolute core of how I work with people today. You cannot force behaviour change and expect a good outcome. Not in an elephant and not in a person. When an animal, any animal, human included, is in a state of stress and fear, the body closes down. Cortisol floods the system, the physiology of distress actively works against the result you're trying to create. You can apply all the expertise in the world and still produce nothing useful, because the creature in front of you is not in a state where it can receive what you're offering. The German team got what they came for and moved on. Melbourne Zoo's elephant team was left with a quieter, more important question. How do we make this work for Bong Su? Not just once, but consistently, in a way that he could actually live with. So I put my hand up. No pun intended, or pun very much intended, depending on your perspective. My job was to train Bong Su, over time from a state of obvious distress to a state of genuine ease. To read him well enough so that each session could begin where the last one left off, a fraction further along, a little more settled, a little more certain that nothing bad was going to happen here. And the work was slow, deliberately, necessarily slow. I watched his skin. When a large animal tenses, you see it in their hide. A subtle tightening, a shift in texture. I watched his tail, because retraction is a signal that the nervous system is on alert. I watched the angle of his ears, the quality of his breathing, the way his enormous weight would shift almost imperceptibly toward me or away. But most of all, I watched his eye, the way he'd cut it back over one shoulder to check what was happening behind him. That ancient sideways glance that says, "I'm not sure about this yet." Every session followed the same rule. We moved forward until something tensed, then we stopped, backed off, let him settle, gave him space and the experience of nothing bad happening, and came back the next day. No pushing through, no he'll get used to it eventually, only reading, responding and returning, session after session, week after week, month after month. Behaviour change, real, lasting behaviour change, doesn't happen on a timeline that suits the coach. It happens on the timeline of the animal being asked to change, whether the animal weighs 300 grams or 5,000 kilograms, whether the change you're asking for involves a new morning routine or a deeply ingrained pattern of stress eating that's been in place for 20 years. After many months, and I want to be honest about that timeline, like most of my coaching, because these are not quick fix stories, something shifted. Bong Su began to understand what the sessions were. He'd see the equipment being laid out, he'd watch me pull on my waterproof suit, and something in his demeanour would change. Not into fear, not into tension, into something that looked unmistakably like anticipation. His eyes would widen. He'd position himself, he'd wait, a 5-ton bull elephant ready and willing, because we had built something together over hundreds of patient repetitions that felt to him like safety. My nickname among the team became Golden Arm. I'll leave that sit exactly where it is. The outcome was extraordinary. Bong Su's semen was successfully collected, stored and transferred to zoos across the Australasian region. Female elephants were inseminated, and Bong Su has offspring living in multiple zoos all over the world. His genetics woven into the captive Asian elephant population of this part of the world. Did not think I would get emotional about that. A conservation legacy, a genetic thread running forward through time. All of it made possible, not by force, but by patience. I still get goosebumps telling this story. So what does any of this have to do with your health, with your habits, with the reason you've started and stopped more times than you can count? Everything. The fitness and wellness industry is built almost entirely on the assumption that you can force behaviour change. Extreme challenges, dramatic resets, programs that demand everything from one day and collapse by Wednesday, because the animal being asked to change was never in a state where it could receive what was being offered. Bong Su taught me that the method which works on paper in theory in the hands of world-class specialists means nothing if the creature in front of you isn't ready for it. My clients, exhausted, overwhelmed adults who've been running on fumes for years, often can't articulate what they need. Not at first, but their energy at the start of the session tells me. The way they talk about food or sleep, or the last time they felt genuinely well, that tells me. I learned to read those skills in elephant yards, and I use the same skill every single day now. And trust is built in the moments you pull back, not in the moments you push forward. Every time I stopped when Bong Su tensed and came back the next morning anyway, That was a deposit in an account that eventually paid off in ways that mattered for the entire region. My clients arrive having been pushed past their limits by themselves, by programs that equated suffering with progress, by a culture that says if you aren't grinding, you're not serious. And the most powerful thing I can do is sometimes stop and ease off, show them that this process is safe, and come back tomorrow. I spent nearly 15 years as a zookeeper. Wedge-tailed eagles, Asian elephants, animals across Australia and Indonesia, and the lesson was always the same. Whether the animal weighed 300 grams or 5,000 kilograms, meet them where they are. Read what they're telling you without words. Don't mistake urgency for effectiveness. Build trust before you ask for anything hard. And I still work exactly that way every single day. I just use different equipment now. If this landed for you, and if you've been that person who's been pushed too hard, too fast for too long, I'd love to talk. There's a link below to book a free call. No pressure, no pitch, just a conversation. Connect with me on the other platforms, all in the caption below, and I'll see you on the next video.